Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Just checking it really quick. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. All right, you're there. Cool. Well, welcome to this live stream. Most of you are at work, so that's completely fine. I'm doing it just because I need to and I want to. So we have two angles today. We have the palette right here, which today we are using Winsor Newton Designer Gouache to kind of go over this piece. And then over here on camera 2, we just have the actual painting itself. This is one of my older study books that I've done, something that I'm just kind of losing my head in, whether it be ink, whether it be like tattoo ink versus like pen ink, trying different stuff with like markers versus watercolor, which I didn't like this study. Yeah, just having fun with stuff, man, and trying to really figure out where the fuck I'm going with my master studies of different artists I like, freehanding, and trying to understand certain characteristics about like how I paint and how I learn. So this one today, we are going to be doing the ending scene from The Last of Us season 2. Beautiful video game, beautiful show, and I really just excited to see kind of what we do with it and how we kind of move forward. So I know a few of you in the Discord have been asking, like, how do I use the paints? How do I kind of maneuver around my ability to like work with them? So let's go ahead and check it out. So right now we have our charcoal brushes. We have a number 10. This is our round. I do have a number 2 round. I have my trusty, as always, number 4 filbert, and then I have my number 10 cat's tongue. I love rounds because they kind of get to the point, which makes me be looser. Ironically, because they have more of a point to them, I actually have to remind myself to stay kind of more loose. With my number 1 brush that I use all the time is usually a filbert. And filberts are just, to me, they're the most versatile, and they're very similar to tattooing. So we have a pretty simple, cool palette over here. We do have to work pretty diligently today because it is gouache, so it will dry up, but we can reactivate it. So I'm just going to kind of go ahead and go into this. You guys can't see it because of the lights on the camera, but we'll work our way from the back to the front. So currently I'm going to go ahead and create a derivative. So whatever color I start off with is going to be the main color we see. So in this case, if I am going and I am starting, let's see if I can move that over here just a tiny bit. There we go. Kind of move that shadow. So if I want a blue sky, even right now with a kind of like a forecast or a snowstorm like the show has, it does not matter how much white, gray, or black is in it. Whatever color you start off with, that is the color that we see. So if we see a really light blue sky, it is still blue. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this right here, which is, this one is, I believe it is called, let's see. This one is just sky blue. Real simple designer gouache. I'm going to grab that and I'm going to cut into my white, and I kind of do a shift palette, right? I come over here, I grab a little bit of the white and I move it from this section, and I slowly kind of move it towards my blue. And as I move it in that blue, it's going to create this shift of really light to really cool or really saturated. So with gouache, unlike acrylics, unlike oils, you can be a little bit more forgiving with it. So in this case, I need to create the very, very background of our piece. So I'm going to take, and there's 2 options to do that. You can go the old school way, which is you apply a lot of water on the canvas itself, kind of like I'm doing right now, and then we'll take just a tiny bit of the lighter version of that and we'll bleed it into the sky. I don't normally paint like this. I paint more like a comic book artist, where I just kind of lay in my colors, and usually do the oil painter's method, I guess you would say, which is mid-tone, dark tone, light tone. I got a lot of that from Juice Juzan, Alex Ross, and a lot of like the old master painters, but we just need to lay down the idea that there is some sky. Now we're going to go ahead and do this side with the water and this side without, to kind of give you the same example of what would be done. On this side over here, I'm going to clean my brush every time. The brush itself, people put way too much water in it, so that's dipped in. I have a paper towel on this side. I kind of square it off, and if you just tap it once onto the paper towel, it makes this damp. We can see like a sheen on my hand. That's still too much water. So I'll just kind of hit it once or twice, and that sheen's a little harder to see. And what it does is it helps us have a damper brush, not a more saturated brush. So I'm pulling from the white side of our mixture kind of into that blue, and then I'll come back over here to the canvas and I'll hit it without any water, meaning that I didn't lay any water on the canvas down. The main thing you want to keep in mind, or at least I try to, is that when I lay in my overlay colors like this, you're going to have this harsh line right there. What the water kind of does is it softens that. So I went back into my water cup and I push back that pigment. Just very, very little bit. So the reason why I paint this way versus the first one of landing a bunch of water on my canvas is because personally I think that it warps my paper too quick. And personally I don't really care if I get a little bit of mud or I get a little bit of like traction in my colors. To me, I want to see more color, less water, but to get that illusion that there is something there, you do want to go ahead and add the water. Let me go ahead and plug in my dryer, just because we're on a live stream. This kind of helps us out. This bad boy right here, this right here is the Recollections. You can get these at like a Hobby Lobby. You can get them at a Michael's online or your local art store. These are great to have. Be very careful, they do get very hot. But if you are doing painting, drawing, anything that you need to draw in the spot, it's kind of a must-have, especially for watercolor artists. So, all right. All right, so I'll come in. You'll see it be really gray over here, specifically just because I'm lifting up some of that pencil. Some people go really soft and light with it. I don't really care. Because it's gouache, we can go pretty thick. The undertone painting is just what it is. Like, it's just an undertone. We don't have to get too serious with it. So we're painting back to front. This is the ending scene for anybody that doesn't know. One of the characters passes away, and so the final shot that I really loved while watching it, or even just in the games, is the panorama look of the scene and the direction we want to take them. So because we have this divide in the middle of the paper, I want to put a character on each side at cross ends of where we will be at. So the background, which is the sky, is the first layer. The second layer is going to be this strip of mountains that kind of sections off. Back here, this little tiny mountain is going to be probably our 1.5 layer. So if we go 1, 2, this will be 3 now. 4 would be this mid-range, and then 5 would be here. So kind of think of it like screen printing. Every single layer that we have has to have a hue or a value, like a color to it that separates it from the previous one. The further we are away from something, the lighter it is in opacity. So we see more white in it as our brain reads it as distance. So anything in the front is going to have no white to very little. I'm talking like 2%. The next one will go up 10 to 15, so on, so forth, and so forth. So while you're doing that shift palette, where when we're coming over here, if this was 1 part white to 2 parts, 1 part blue to 2 parts white right here, then that means that the next layer, if we got to go further, would be doubled on the white. So 1 part blue to 4 parts white. 1 part blue, 6 parts white. And then that helps us to separate between each one of those markers depth-wise. If we were looking at the image from the side in a three-dimensional portion, we have to separate each layer. So when we are looking at the photo head on, going towards us, I guess the camera is right there. If it's looking at us, there has to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers. And so blue is in each one of those layers. We're just doubling the amount, or 1.5ing if you want to like not go too crazy, the amount of white in between each one of those blue mixtures, if that helps. So let's go ahead and go back. I'm going to go ahead and take my blue. Now a gouache acts like a acrylic. It is a watercolor, but I mean, it's really in its own demographic, but if you paint oil paints, it is the perfect paint for you, because it acts like everything at the same time. And that's kind of what I like about it. I was trained by like classical watercolor and oil painters, as where I was kind of also trained on the other side by like old school punk rocker tattooer painters. So that the mixture of both kind of gives you a understanding of how to like push water and push almost just imagination in some of these areas. And then the other thing is, with classical training, it teaches you how to isolate those values, right? Water and black helps make a good traditional tattoo piece, because we're trying to fit 4 dimensions, 3 dimensions into 2. Classical, we can fit 3 dimensions into a 2-dimensional piece of paper, but we're also trying to emulate layers of those dimensions. So having fun with them, I think gouache does the best out of almost any medium, that really teaches us like, okay, cool. How can we have fun with something that A, doesn't stink to high hell and takes forever to dry, and B, that if we do fuck up, how do we work through it or past it? You know, watercolor is probably the least forgiving out of some of these mediums, and that's kind of why I like it. It teaches us to have to like push through and figure it out, versus always kind of second guessing yourself. If you fuck up, it's okay. That's part of art. Fuck it up and make it your own. Bob Ross did really well with that, of just telling you like happy little accidents, but we work through those accidents and make them your own. Okay, so again, I'm looking for volume and how the valley itself kind of moves around everything. Now, normally this would be the tone and the color that I would put for most of the mountains already, because the mountains themselves are pretty shaded in this blue. The only reason we're doing the background like this is because I want to make sure I put down my first layers, that when I eventually paint the entire backscape, the whole thing from the show is layered in like overcast from clouds in a snowstorm. So we're going to take like a mop brush and a lighter, drier version of this paint with mixture 1 part blue to like 4 parts white, and then that immediately will go ahead and give it that recession that pushes back. New York accent. Hitmon Savage. Draw the Pokemons. I know, that's how I feel. What's going on, Hitmon? All right. If you are in the chat right now, which there is people, and you want to ask questions, feel free. And the main thing with a lot of these is just have fun. Have fun, take your time. Okay, and now I'm going to switch over to my filbert brush. Filberts are nice because I can get into little nooks and crannies, and I'll even show you like here on the actual palette that I can kind of come in here and I can start cutting in directions of how I want that mountain to kind of have a shape, right? So for these mountains are going to have two real colors to them to keep them simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take cerulean blue. I'm going to take that mixture and I'm going to shift palette it as well into this one. Take a little bit of water, push in with your first color, push back with your second. When you push in with the first color, you're going to immediately put this color over this one. When you pull it back, when you go back into your original color, it'll automatically start mixing back in there, so this one sits on top. So this little mixture in between is like a really good example of kind of what I'm looking for, because it's already like drastically different than the first one, but it has that color and that hue to create that secondary layer we're talking about. We've done the first, let's go ahead and do the second. So follow the directions of the mountains. And the same process of doing this is just like oil paints. Thick over thin. The first layers are going to be extremely thin with what we're kind of going for to kind of just lay in the shapes of the mountains and then lay in the idea of what our world looks like. The further it is from us, the less realistic we have to be. It still has to follow the laws of physics, right? Like this mountain is sloping down this way. We still need to make sure that we're pulling those strokes towards the same way that those mountains are going. If we don't follow that direction, then it doesn't really do us much good, because our brain sees different planes. Planes meaning the way that our hands or surfaces or things move in a three-dimensional space. So if everything is sliding this way, look at the lines in my hand. Those are perfectly the way that they should be lining up. So if you put your hand this way, the way the mountain's going, each brush stroke should follow those lines. And then the amount of pressure is how big or thick those things end up being. When I run out of paint, like in this case, I'm starting to kind of lose it, I can go back and remake my mixtures just by memorizing them, which you'll get better at. It's almost like when you memorize lyrics to like a rap or something, specifically rap, nothing else. So I'll put that blue back in here. I'll take one for the blue to offset it back in there. So there's my original one. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my cerulean, take just a tiny bit. I'm going to put it at the edge, and I'm going to work it back into this, and then I'm going to work it back to the cerulean. And now I have a whole nother pot of the original color. So when I go back over here, boom, ready to go. All right. The thick over thin, again, just to reiterate, is a term that we use in oil painting, where you paint a thinner layer to just get the shapes. All those little different shapes that we were talking about, to make sure that we understand where the shapes of the mountains are going and the different planes. And then what happens is as we get more confident in those shapes, I'm going to start painting thicker layers or more opaque layers, just a lot more saturated colors into the layers on top, so we can absolutely see what we're looking at, what we're doing. And we'll come in. going to start using a bigger brush. So this is my bigger filbert, or my larger one, I should say, because I need to make broader shapes. The thinner our brush is, the more detailed and the more poignant things become. Like we're trying to get little things to just stick in these areas versus just like going with the shape. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my larger brush just to make the broader strokes. And those broader strokes are what are going to help us to like truly understand like what exactly we're looking at and then why we're looking at said thing. So in this case, I'm going to actually extend these mountains up a little bit. Larger mountain here on the side. Now I'm just going to wash this out because we already know that all this is going to be covered up by trees on this side. So I'm not really too worried about that. I just want to be able to get something to blend in to that area. So we just understand that there is some kind of divide from those plains. Now the town in the show is right here. That's where we want to make sure our focal point is. So our focal point for this entire valley of how we're looking is going to kind of curtail to where it moves in between. So I guess if I were to do it with the brush, trying to look off camera. So like here's where our character's at and they have to travel down this way and then slowly pinpoint there. So our vantage point and our actual focal point is here. So we want to make sure that we're pulling out from that area. In the image itself, like from the show, we're going to go ahead and look at how we are going to mix a tiny bit of green to separate. It's kind of like an off green. So I'm going to come over here. I have my mixture still, and I have this like off moss green right here. I'm going to add the green to that side, and I have a lamp black, which is a warm black, like a brown black. It's a bit much. Let's take that, cut it, and I just want like a real deep moss tone. I'm going to mix this over here on this side, and if we can see it, it kind of acts more like a really dark mud, like almost a mossy mud. So I'm going to take my brush, clean it. I'm going to pull some of the blue, and the blue will sit here. Take a little bit of the water and the white, let's put it there, and I'm going to push that towards the green. Main reason why is because I need the blue to sit on top of the green to give me an alteration of that color. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead one more time, pull the blue in, and then we get this tint. Our tints, our tones, our shades. So now any of these blues that I use for the trees or anything else, I'm going to get this green color that most of my trees are going to sit at anyway, but they're affected by that white. So we now get that distance into our painting. So I'm going to go back, and I am going to go ahead and take this, do a secondary wash, take some of the blue, and let's kill some of those highlights. We'll add them in later. We can still see the undertone of some of those, but nothing too crazy because we're already going to see it through a snowstorm. So we need to give the illusion that this is like a really fucked up day. Cool. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and do my second layer. My second layer here is going to be this mixture of this like off green blue that we have. So I'm just going to paint a flat layer first after we dry it, and then we'll go ahead and shape the second layer. Here I'm creating that second layer that kind of tells us where the trees and the valley is going and kind of how much more I want to push in. I'll take my smaller brush eventually and get to those, but I just need to go ahead and push in where we're going to be seeing like where the trees go up. Everything kind of digs in. All right. This is where we have to really be careful with our choices moving forward. So now I want to put down the large brush, I want to take down the small brush, and I just want to start hitting some of these like little cavernous areas that we see in our reference, and how we're going to like pick trees out of these things. So in most of these, there's really like rigid tops. I'm not going to hit those just yet, but we want to make sure that we're cutting into the valley, knowing that we're still keeping the point of focus over here, which is the town, and we'll do the town just right there. I'm going to paint the foreground right here to kind of kill some of those highlights to see where we can meet in the middle. And I'm going to do this by going back to my larger brush. And this one's going to be a thicker layer. All I'm doing is I'm doing our previous mixture, except that we see white with a blue tinge to it. So instead of doing the blue first, we're going to do the white first. Okay, so I'm going to check my brush. Again, whatever color we see, no matter what it is, however it's being altered, we start with that color first. And luckily, because white, especially in this case, is so fragile with how it kind of sits on the canvas, I can just take it into that little bit of the blue itself, the sky blue, and then I can mix this little pocket that's not perfectly white like this, where you can't really see it on the camera. You see this section. That's kind of where I want to sit. Okay. Again, I'm still using that mixture of the white first, then the sky blue to kind of shift it down. And I want to push more of that as we go along. The main thing I want to do is I want to kill all the white on my paper. Only reason why is because we want to make sure that we are pushing our value into a neutral territory where we can actually see where things sit and where they don't sit. Right? Because if we have everything openly white, we're going to gauge ourselves to what that white is. But in reality, that's not perfectly white. That actually has a tinge of blue to it. So when I'm still mixing, and every single time I'm mixing, I have the white over here and I have the sky blue, and I'm pushing the blue into that white every time I need a little bit more blue, and I'm pushing the white this way every time I need a little bit more white. Cool. The worst thing about landscape paintings, art direction, anything, is that most of the time, like when you're doing oil, you have the Bob Ross approach where he can go in and he just lays it in as thick as he wants and paints on top, on top, on top. I'll do that with acrylic. I'll do it with oil. Watercolor, especially gouache, I like taking my time. Like, I really like taking my time to kind of build things, because I'm also, like, the whole point of a study book is truly to understand what I can do with a little bit or with a lot. So, like right now, I think the main thing I'm trying to pick up on is how do I like divide my layers to look the way I want them to. So now I'm actually going to get a little bit thicker. So I want to come over here, and then again, I'm going to start off with my white. I'm going to put that bad boy right down, my sky blue. And that's very saturated. So when I go back to my work, I can go ahead and just cut because I need a horizon line. So this bad boy is thick. Okay, I'm gonna go back, get more of this mixture, and then just hammer down. You can hear the scrapes on the paper because my hand's not sitting on the paper. I kind of float it above. And kind of like makeup, right? Is you want to be able to fan and move that brush to just make it nice and soft. This is why I like filberts, is because there's no real harsh tip. I can get anything I really want from it just by blending and just building my layers. So now I'm going to make a little bit more, get that even layer. I'll show you the mixture again. White, I'm going to put that right here. Sky blue on the opposite end, and then I'm going to push and kind of load that brush. Shape your brush. If I want my brush to be a little bit more to the side, it'll go to the side. If it wants to go flat, it'll go flat. The nicer the brushes, the better that you have a snap, which is the way it keeps its shape. Thicker paints will alter that. Gouache doesn't have that much power, but it does make a difference when you push the paint in the direction that you want to go. I found out that it helps me tremendously, so I don't over or underdo something I'm really trying to push. So in this case, taking a little bit of water to blend it. Go back to the mixture. Now you'll notice the paper will start to bow a little bit. That's absolutely normal. Bow just means that it actually takes too much water in and it starts to curve a little. You'll get a little bit of that because of the dryer as well, but not as bad because you can correct it in real time. So for me, is like I just try to get as much of my layers in before I start doing anything else, because if I don't, then all of a sudden it starts looking a little bit too warpy and then it ruins the paper. So I try to work pretty diligently on how I paint, and then secondly, that's also why I don't use a lot of water. I use water mainly for blending purposes. I don't use it actually for like application in the sense of like, oh, I have to lay all this water, then I do my tones. So now we have like a very muted ground for the snow, and then our darker values to kind of push forward. All right, so let's go and dry that. So this is what we call curing. Usually I would let like a day go by before I want to do any of the next processes, depending on how thin the paper is. I work with the GSM, I work with normally like 140 to 300, depending on what it is. But this paper, I believe, is 140. So it's going to be a little bit more fragile. It will even out, like even when I was doing the Ghibli studies. Like this looks like shit for like 2 hours, but then I go and I have fun with it. I know there's a lot of other people that paint a lot quicker, and I totally love that. I just genuinely, I like taking my time, because this book's point and purpose is to learn and to study. So when we get to these stages and it looks like a blob, 90% of the time I'll take a break, and then I'll go ahead and grab a coffee or something, or I'll sit around, and then I'll really look kind of what we call bird's eye view. Is I'll take a photo of this and I'll match it to what my actual reference or what I'm trying to emulate. Like even if it's just reference from a movie, or it's a completely different painting, but I love the values of the colors, I'll look at that and I'll kind of re-gauge what I want to do for myself. So that is it for this little quick preview on the live stream. If you want to check the rest out, go to brushofthedoom.com and or the Discord and check out the finished product with more hyper detail for yourselves. All right, guys, I'll see you soon.